Hello and welcome back to Open, everyone. So, April is National Poetry Month, and our last guest is a writer, poet, and spoken word artist whose work has been featured in Red, BX Writers, and Mojave Heart, that's just to name a few. And he peels back, the layers of human existence in his full-length poetry collection, We Are Not One Thing. And the collection dives into the depths of a father-son relationship cut short in his spoken word album, I Wear Another Man's Name, and tells an interwoven story of trauma through time in his debut novel, Timeless Gardens, and Other Beautiful Miseries. And his latest book, God is a Woman, is an examination of what it means to identify your own personal God. Here to discuss more, please welcome writer, poet, and spoken word artist, TJ McGowan, aka The Everyday Bite.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is a blast.
The titles of your book are like off the charts.
Oh, thanks.
So which comes first, the writing or the title?
Usually the writing. It depends. God as a Woman, I feel like the title came after a question that was proposed to me by another friend that was an artist, asking me sort of how would I identify God, since I wasn't necessarily the most religious or spiritual person. So it was almost like that question immediately was like my mother, an ex, all these sort of feminine energy figures in my life.
Uh-huh.
So that one, I guess, it kind of came first.
Uh-huh.
Well, like We Are Not One Thing, I wrote that and then kind of looked back at all the versions of myself over the 30 years of my life at the point I wrote it, all the versions of my family members that I'm writing about in it, and sort of how we are not one thing. So I guess it's a feeling. I'm not sure.
So basically, what I'm getting,
Okay.
just listening to you, is that people ask you a question and then they serve as prompts that allow you to kind of do some level of self-analysis or it sounds like you meditate on factors.
To a degree, yeah. It all. Sometimes it's prompt. Timeless Garden was a prompt through a conversation with a friend, in which we were literally just talking about what if we could escape the world into a place where time paused for a second to like enjoy ourselves, and then we could step back in. And I couldn't get away from that for like months. I just couldn't get away from it, and then it started as like a little seed, and then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew. You know, We Are Not One Thing was similar. I was going through kind of like a crisis point, reflecting on a lot of like having lost my dad and sort of now being an adult, and sort of figuring out what therapy might be, things like that. And then that, in a way, I guess grief then can also become a prompt for me. I'm also obsessed with time and mortality and all, happy things.
Yeah, this is your new release.
Yes.
God is a Woman.
Yeah, and which kind of pandemic after I had finished the novel, I was in a place of, I didn't know what anything meant to me. And it came from a conversation where someone had asked me, well, if you're not really a believer in God, or how would you personify God? And it sort of spilled out in these 15 or 16 poems where I was writing about all these different female figures in my life that in some way impacted me and on the ground level, concrete reality. I was like, well, I think for me, it's just the nurturing feminine energy that radiates from certain figures in my life. And so then that's where that came from. And on a whim, I sent it, the first press I sent it to, that was an all-female led press. They loved it, Quencia Press. They're based out of Illinois, and they sort of were like, we want to kind of put this out. And so that's the latest sort of bit of poetry that I've dove into, which is like vastly different than any other kind of poetry I've done prior.
Interesting. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to reading this. Coming from a male feminist. That's sort of, because
Yeah.
when as far as I'm concerned, when a person can relate to, I guess, the women energy, I mean, they say we have both, right?
Sure.
All
sure,
of us.
Sure.
Right? And the fact that you're able to really bask in the nurturing and the actual protective, right? Because there's a certain level of protection and safety that comes from that nurturing
Sure.
energy that It's really refreshing to see a
And
male really
it's all
put
about
in light.
and like it's a weird like you use the word feminist and then like yeah, I'm a feminist. I mean, by definition, it's just asking for equality between I'm not losing my train of thought here, but
Go for it.
it's really just I've learned throughout my life and my creative life. It's stepping outside of your own shoes
Right.
and just absorbing other experience.
Right.
It's just it's you can use that to act out to do good for other people,
Right.
but it's also a really great selfish way to grow as a human being if you actually just sort of open your ears and listen to different walks of life, different identities in life, and particularly the opposite of what you feel is going to be part of your unity in life.
Yeah.
It's a very odd thing to sort of separate this box of like this is sort of like these are men issues, this is female issues, and none of this can learn from each other. And so
Right.
I'm definitely not a guy that's like, yeah, I'm a feminist. It's sort of like a no-brainer.
Yeah, because everything you just described, if I had to sum it all up, is just being with each other.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
just to be with each other. I know we
100%.
went there. We went there. Anyway, we got to wrap up because
Sure.
you're gonna present for us, right?
I have a poem, yeah.
What are you gonna present for us?
It's called "Give Me Love." It's from sort of like a side project I did with a buddy of mine that I just enjoy doing it because I guess in a way it's out of all the dark stuff I typically write, for me it's one of the ones where I looked down and I was like, I think I might have wrote something a little more positive, a little more something that could be beneficial. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful to affirm into the universe. Bravo. Woo! All right, you guys don't go anywhere when we return. The Everyday Bite is going to perform for us after the break. You don't want to miss.